Well, hey, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our broadcast today. We're working still in the series we've been doing. We took a little break for the holidays there.
Yep. Nice little break.
We're talking about generational curses.
Man, what a powerful series this has been. This has really uncovered and exposed just a lot of teaching as well as false teachings, if you will, about generational curses.
Yeah. And I think, we're going to get deeper into it today. But in our last segment, we were talking about, how curses are not just the result of a, quote, demon.
Right. Demonic activity.
You can't cast out a demon of a generational curse in very many instances, because generational curses go down from generation to generation, mainly because of learned behavior patterns.
Yeah. Behavior begets behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we really kind of got into the curse of poverty on this last segment.
Yeah, that was good.
I had given you this story structure out of this book that I love, What Every Church Member Needs to Know About Poverty. And here's the story structure. It says, if an individual depends upon a random episodic story structure for memory patterns, lives in an unpredictable environment, and has not developed the ability to plan. Okay, so everything begins with a plan.
Right.
Life begins with a plan.
Right.
What happens if we don't plan for a child? Well, we may not be ready for the child
for the child
comes.
Right.
So, and here's the story structure, how this works. And I love this breakdown. If an individual cannot plan, he or she cannot predict. If an individual cannot predict, he or she cannot identify cause and effect. And then, I don't understand. Why does this always happen to me?
And they always blame God or over-spiritualize something, not because of a demon.
I remember, I can't tell you how many times in the last 38 years I've had people say, I can't understand. This is the third job I've been fired from.
Hello.
And I'm like, and you don't think that's a problem with you? Well, I don't. I'm like, okay, if you can't identify cause and effect, I have sent in, I'm going to say the last 10 years, I can remember several people who came to me who got fired from a job, and I sent them back. Now, only a few of them did it.
To go back and talk to the boss and ask why.
I'm only asking you, tell me why you fired me honestly, so that I can fix this in my life.
Right.
Very few will ever do that.
But this just came to mind. We have a real life example of this. Just a few weeks ago, that gentleman came up and talked to you and me, and he had been fired and at odds with every manager for the past 6 months to a year. He listened to this series, began to apply this to his life. He's gotten 3 promotions and 2 raises in the past 6 weeks.
And he
applied
went to
these
his
principles
boss and asked, why did you give me a raise?
Right.
And the boss said, you gave yourself a raise.
That's right. There it is.
Right there is breaking the curse of poverty. It had nothing to do with the demon.
No.
It was learned work ethic that you probably got from your family.
Yeah.
And why is it that poverty seems to run in the generations? Well, again, we call it a generational curse, but it's learned behavior.
Yeah, it's not curses as much as it is cycles.
And this goes with spiritual curses of, heathenism, so to speak. Well, why do, if Christ isn't brought into a family, that family is cursed generation to generation to generation until Christ comes in and breaks the curse.
Yeah.
I had, over my life, we have taken in a lot of people into our home, and I never forget when I was younger and I was a little more idealistic on life. I used to think, I would see this young down and out kid, maybe 18, maybe 20. I took in some that were literally 16. Their parents threw them out.
Yeah.
And I would see this person and I would think, all we have to do is show you the right way and your problems are over. Well, what I learned was I could show them the right way, but very few would ever change their ways.
Yeah.
And as I began studying again, when you look into sociology, patterns and habits are built into people in their early childhood.
Yeah, those formidable years.
By the age of 3, your personality is formed.
Yeah.
And will seldom change the rest of your life. By the age of 5, work ethic is formed. Either your parents made you pick up your toys,
Right.
clean up your mess,
Yeah.
or they didn't. And based upon their training of you in how to break habits of poverty, which again, cause and effect.
Right.
Why does this keep happening to me?
Yeah.
Okay, now we can go from finances to health. I'll never forget when I discovered, when my dad died, I was blown away. He was 50, 55 years old, and he looked healthy. If you look at him, he wasn't, obese. He didn't look like he was real sick. He was a healthy looking guy. He was strong as an ox.
Yeah.
When he died, and I found out, I'll never forget, we sat in with the heart surgeon
Yeah.
after his heart cath, and the heart surgeon sat in that room with me, my two sisters, and my mom, and told us, your dad has heart disease, or he has arterial disease, hardening the arteries, we call it.
Right.
And I'll never forget what this guy said. He said, now our plan is, this was a Friday evening. He said, our plan is, we don't have the staff to do it this weekend, but Monday morning, we're going to do a bypass surgery. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into his legs and we'll cut out good arteries and we'll patch them into his heart arteries. And I said, okay, well, will that correct it? And he said, it's a disease. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he says, well, if you have this arterial disease, I'm going to fix it. But he said in 5 to 10 years, we'll have to do it again because those arteries will clog up too because it's a disease. I'll never forget that conversation.
Yeah.
How he explained 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
We'll
Then it
probably have
starts
to do
over.
it again.
Yeah.
So now after my dad dies, because he died 20 minutes later after that conversation, before they even did the surgery. But after that, I then, at the age of about 40, I think I was 48 when I got my first bad report that I had blockages in my arteries, heart disease. I had what they call metabolic syndrome, which is prediabetes. My blood pressure was starting to go up, and I had hardening the arteries. And so heart disease. So I remember at that point, something inside me just didn't go get a prescription statin and start doing all the regiment that they tell you to do,
Right.
take this statin for your cholesterol and take
Right.
this for your blood pressure. I said, there's got to be a cause. There's got to be a cause. I can't believe that, I just lost the lottery, so to speak.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
I have heart disease and there's nothing I can do. I'm going to die at 55 like my dad did.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to end up with bypass surgeries like. And so as I began to investigate, I went through nutrition. I tried to fix it with supplements.
Right.
Didn't work.
Right.
Nothing was changing. I tried all these different routes until one day, I'll never forget, in the sanctuary, Kalita walks up to me, one of our ladies in the church, Kalita Deem, she walks up to me, she says, Pastor, you ever watched Forks Over Knives?
Yeah.
And I said, what's that? She said, it's a documentary about plant-based diet. And I'm like, oh, I ain't eating soybeans.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like, don't get me on
Yeah.
soy burgers,
Right.
And she goes, no. She said, just watch it. I think it'll help you. And when I watched that video, do you know what it did? It broke the curse of health poverty off of my generation. Why? Cause and effect.
Yep. You saw
See,
it.
I learned what causes arterial disease. Is there a genetic propensity to it? Yes, but so is there to cancer.
Right.
Well, guess what? I don't have the genetic propensity to cancer. I did have the genetic propensity to heart disease. Now,
Right.
a lot of times you don't, the number 2 causes of death in America, number 1 is heart disease, number 2 is cancer.
Right.
Basically, you'll find out half of Americans have a genetic propensity toward heart disease.
Right.
The other half will have perfect cholesterol their whole life, never have a clogged vein, but they'll fight cancer.
Right.
Well, I found studies that link this to cholesterol because low cholesterol gives cholesterol is a mother hormone in the body. Your body makes its own cholesterol. It's the dietary cholesterol, the omega-6s, fats, the fats that are bad for you, the saturated fats, the monosaturated fats, and all these other fats. Well, as I studied and I learned the cause and effect, here's what I did. And then I discovered another thing, that there's a natural substance that you can, clean your arteries with. And so I began to go down that route. Now, I had a heart surgeon's report in my desk, still probably got it somewhere in there, that said at the age of, I think it was 40, let's see, I'm trying to remember, 40, let's say 46, 48, right in there. I had a letter from a heart surgeon saying you have significant plaque buildup in your arteries. Mm-hmm. So when I went and I changed my diet, I quit eating all the dietary cholesterol, but I went a step further. I started bringing in, at that time, for 5 years, 100% of my diet was plant-based. I ate no animal meat, no fat, no eggs, no dairy, nothing, not a piece of cheese for 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, 5 years later, I go get the test done again, and I got a letter from a heart surgeon saying, no plaque buildup in your arteries.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what changed my outlook on life? I knew there was a generational curse on my life.
Yeah.
So as I'm studying this, I run across this guy named Dr. Greiger, nutritionfacts.org. Mm-hmm. And I remember in one of his teachings, he says, why does cancer run in families and heart disease run in families? He said, you didn't just lose the lottery. Mm-hmm. He said, because you eat the same thing your parents eat, and they eat the same thing their parents eat, and they ate the same thing their parents eat. You cook the same way your parents cook.
Yeah.
Again, with cancer, you have lifestyles.
Right.
Environmental things, toxins. I mean, you've got all
you're
this
breathing, what are you around? Yeah.
And what are you eating?
Right.
Because, they literally, you can go on Forks Over Knives and you can watch it on Netflix or anywhere. It's a documentary. It's all over the world. And one thing I'll never forget, they took cancer cells and they put them on a microscope slide.
Yeah.
And they took the average, what we call SAD.
Yeah. Standard American diet, which is SAD.
A normal person eating McDonald's, Wendy's, eating the standard American fast food, processed food diet. Mm-hmm. They took their blood and they put it on those cancer cells. And they show it under a microscope, and some of those cells die. Majority of them don't. They took blood from a person who had a plant-based diet. A vegan, they call them. I don't like the word vegan in the sense of I'm not a tree hugger, and I've never seen a cow I didn't want to kill and eat.
Right.
I love
You're
bacon.
not doing it for a political reason.
Yeah, I'm not doing it for political reasons. I'm doing it for health, because I have a propensity in my genetics from, call it a curse, call it whatever you want.
Right.
And I have that propensity. So I'm just stacking the deck in my favor, so to speak. They take that same blood, they put it on a slide, and it was like watching fireworks. Those cancer cells were just all dying almost instantly.
Unbelievable.
From vegan blood versus a standard American diet blood. So again,
incredible.
Your immune system, they've done so much work understanding, I make sure and eat fermented food. Why? Because the mitochondria in your intestines is one of your number one systems of fighting disease and your immune system building. And so I went back to this. If I can't identify cause and effect, I can't identify consequences.
Yeah, that's good.
I was talking with someone last night, and it hit me again. I want to do a message, and I may have done it in the past, called Truth or Consequences. I was preaching Sunday, and I said, do you want to be a lover of the truth?
Right.
Because the truth is, there are consequences to every action. Yeah. How you plan.
How you don't plan.
So if I'm sitting here and I'm in the fourth generation of poverty, I'm doing the same thing my mom and dad did. I'm doing the same thing their mom and dad did, grandma and grandpa, great grandma and grandpa, in the sense of I never learned, and I love this. In poverty, they say the key to poverty is the inability to link time and task.
Wow.
Okay, what's that mean?
Wow.
Time management is the mother of all poverty.
Right.
Why? I'm doing the wrong thing at the wrong time.
And it's always going to produce the wrong result,
Yeah.
consequence.
If I'm talking when I should be working,
Going to get fired.
I'm going to get fired.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And so, again, if I'm not managing my time by doing things that are productive in the time I had, you know, let me read this in the book of Proverbs, chapter 26. Like snow in the summer and like rain in the harvest, so is honor not fitting for a self-confident fool. I'm reading from the Amplified. Okay, in other words, a self-confident fool, it's as goofy for that person to get honor as it is for it to snow in the summer or rain in the fall.
That's a good
the dry
analogy.
season.
Yeah.
Now listen to verse 2. Talk about a generational curse eye-opener. Like a sparrow in her wandering, like a swallow in her flying. Do you ever sit out in the evening and watch the barn swallows swoop around in the fields?
Million
They're
miles an hour catching the bugs.
Catching the bugs or the bats in the dusk. You watch them and they're zipping around. It says, just like that, it says, the causeless curse does not alight. The causeless curse does not alight. Now, we started this series talking about no longer say among yourselves, the parents have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge.
Right.
Which was an old thing of, well, it's just a generational curse.
Right. What the parents
my family's
get, the kids
curse,
get.
you know,
right.
what
Can't,
the parents
can't
get.
stop it.
And then we found out that God said, I will not make you pay for the sins of your parents.
Right.
You will, each man will bear his own iniquity.
Yeah, that's Ezekiel 18. It talks about the consequences of yourself, not your parents, and vice versa.
This was me going back several years. I'm like, okay, if that's the fact, then what is the spiritual side of generational curses?
Yeah.
Well, what happens when I got saved? I think it was the grace of God that I was able to say and discern, I know there's generational curses in my family.
Right.
I was raised in poverty. My parents were raised in poverty. Their parents were raised in poverty. My grandfather died when my dad was 8. He told me the stories. When he was a teenager, he went out in the hay fields with a scythe and cut hay for 50 cents a day. They almost starved. My grandma told stories about how my dad loved to drink milk, and he had a little metal cup. And Grandma said every day, 2 or 3 times a day, he'd walk down the barn and milk the cow, fill that little cup, and drink straight from the udder.
Wow.
They didn't have money.
No.
You know, I mean, they were poor.
Yeah.
Poor.
That's about as poor as you get.
My other side of the family, my granddad was the high school, one of the high school maintenance guys. Just scratched out a living his whole life. Died in poverty. You know, 3 square meals of a little modest house, and that's all they had to their name.
Yeah.
There was no inheritances in our family,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Inheritance is there enough money to pay for the funeral?
Right.
That's a curse of poverty.
Right.
So I recognize the curses of poverty, and I remember I was getting ready to join the Army, and I went out and joined the Army without telling my parents. And I came home and told them I already signed up. And they're like, David, what have you done? You know, and I'm like, and I'll never forget, my dad one day cornered me. And my dad was a man of few words, but he looked at me. Now, at that time in my life, I was an apprentice for him.
Right. You were working at this paper with him.
Yeah, he printed the local newspaper, and I was his apprentice.
Yeah.
He didn't own the company, but he was one of the 3 head
press
guys there.
Yeah.
And so he ran that whole side of the printing of it, and I was working for him in high school. And when I graduated high school, I was still working for him. And I'll never forget, he looked at me one day and he said, well, I was kind of hoping, you know, and his bosses had already come to me and said, we're really hoping, you know, you'll stick around here and take over one day when your dad's too old to work, you know. And I'm like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
Right.
But I'll never forget, my dad cornered me one day. He said, well, son, I kind of hoped you'd, you know, follow in my footsteps. And I'll never forget, I looked to my dad, and to this day, I would say I regret this as much as anything ever happened between us in our lifetimes. If I could take anything back that I said to my dad disrespectfully in my lifetime, this would be one of probably 3 things.
Yeah.
And I looked at him, I said, I'll tell you one thing right now, when I'm your age, I'll have more than you got. And my dad looked at me and he said these words, "I hope you do, son. I really hope you do."
Yeah.
And I knew I had disrespected him.
Yeah.
But in the same way, he had, you know, my best interests at heart.
Right.
But he did what he knew to do.
Yeah.
And so that curse of poverty was in our family. When I got saved, I hadn't been saved very long. And I remember, you know, I got into a good church with my pastor, Pastor Bob Nichols, down in Fort Worth, and great church, Calvary Cathedral, you know, now is Mercy Culture. But I love my pastor, and I'll never forget, I started hearing these teachings just right after I got saved about generational curses, you know. And I remember I just said this, the curse stops here.
Yeah.
The curse stops here. But when I said that, I already could recognize the curse is going to stop here in my family because I'm not doing what they did.
You were making a choice.
I wasn't saying I'm going to cast a demon out and it's over.
Right. Wish it was that easy.
I'm saying I'm not going to raise my children the way they raised me.
Right.
I'm not going to look at finances the way they looked at finances. I'm not going to look at life the way they looked at life. The curse stops here.
Right.
This curse of dying that we used to call our hometown a vacuum cleaner. It sucks you in and never lets you out.
Oh, man.
You know?
Yeah.
And I said, that curse is broken. The curse stops here.
Yeah.
Now, the curse causeless does not light. So again, you didn't just lose the lottery. You're a product of generations.
That's good.
And if you don't learn to go into your generations and recognize the characteristics and the moral conduct and the habit patterns that brought these curses into your family, then guess what?
It's never going to change.
You can cast out demons till the the end of time.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change because it ain't a demon, it's you.
And we've missed that. You hear teachings all the time about, well, you got to be careful hanging out with that person. A demon may jump on you. But we get all caught up in that type of cursing. But the problem is the power lies in the person that, that has the ability to come against the curse.
Yeah.
First of all, as a believer, the name of Jesus is above all names, and you're living in the new nature. Second of all, you should have a renewed mind, a new mindset to change those old thinking patterns.
Absolutely. You got to have.
Yeah.
One of the craziest, I'm going to call it one of the craziest counseling sessions in my career.
One of them. Because there's been a lot.
One day, a woman comes in my office, sits down across from me, and she was somewhat obese. And she looked at me and she said, I said, what do you need prayer for? She said, I need deliverance. And I said, really, what do you need deliverance for? And she said, she told me the story. She said, like 7 years ago, there was a woman who was a spiritual mentor to me. And she said, and one day she laid hands on me to pray for me. And she said, ever since that day, I can't stop gaining weight. And I looked at her and said, well, let's talk about your diet. Oh, I don't eat anything.
Oh, of course not.
I don't eat nothing. I said, really? You don't eat nothing? No, but I'm telling you. I said, now, wait a minute. Do you think you got a demon when she prayed for her? Yes, I got a demon. That thing came in me, and it's making me gain weight. I said, now, do you believe, and this is a real conversation I'm having, do you believe that that demon is supernaturally bringing calories into your body and making you get fat
cells? Yeah.
She said yes.
Oh, my.
And, dude, she was as serious as a heart attack. She's crying. And so I'm like, oh man, boy, how am I going to navigate this one? So we got a demon bringing calories into your body, making you get overweight. And you want me to cast that demon out of you? Yes, yes, yes. So I said, well, okay, let's take a different direction. So I kind of changed the dialogue a little bit and was just kind of going around and around. And I just kept, she started kind of lowering her defenses a little bit, and I said, well, again, let's talk about your diet, And I said, how many calories you think you eat a day? I don't eat hardly anything. I don't eat hardly anything. I said, really? Okay. It was about an hour into it.
Oh, boy.
The dam broke.
Uh-oh.
And all of a sudden, This woman busts out. It was like a dam breaking. She said, "I know, I can't help it." She told me stories about her life. She said, "I go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and I buy a huge bucket and I come home and I lock myself in the bathroom and I eat the whole bucket of chicken."
No.
She said, "I have food hidden all over our house."
Oh my gosh.
And I'm going, "Really? Man, wow." And so all of a sudden it was like what have I done? What have I said? I said, "Do you still think it was a demon?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh my gosh, I have gluttony." And I said, "Yes."
Yeah, there's the
I said,
sin.
"How many calories you think you're eating today?" "I got food hidden all over my house right now. I hide it from my children. I hide it from my husband. And when they go to bed, I lock myself in the bathroom and I eat till dawn, And I'm like, wow. Now that's the power of deception.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the power of deception.
And it could be anything. That's just food,
that's
but it
a
could be
food thing.
anything.
I can't stop spending money.
Yeah.
I mean, I sat with a couple a while back and I'm counseling them and they're like, "We're broke. We're about to lose our house. We can't manage money." And he looked at her, and these people were probably in their late 40s, maybe early 50s. They said, "She can't manage money. I can't manage money. We spend every dime we got. We're always poor." And then he was self-employed, and I'll never forget. I said, "Well, how much money?" I said, "Maybe you need to up your hour, your hourly wage and stuff." I said, what are you charging people now?" And he's like $70 an hour. And I said, "You're charging $70 an hour? Are you busy?"
And he
said, "Oh, yeah, I got more work than I can do." 70 times 4.
And that's service work. It's not product. It's him getting paid $70 an hour.
$2,800 a week.
Wow.
You can't live on that? He said, "I can't stop some money." Again, what was that? If I can't plan, I can't predict. If I can't predict, I can't identify cause and effect. If I can't identify cause and effect, I can't identify consequence.
Yeah.
If I can't identify consequence, I can't control impulsivity. I was on the phone last night, and about 9 o'clock last night, I was talking to a guy, and we got talking about, situation with diet and stuff. I said, "Look, man," I said, "I count every calorie I eat every day." And I know I'm 63 years old, moderate activity level, work out a couple times a week. I know if I eat more than 1,000, 1,100 calories a day, I start gaining weight.
Right.
I already know that.
Right.
So guess what? I can't blame that on a demon.
Right.
I got to cut back on the high caloric foods.
Right.
So if I want to eat more, last night, I've eaten this many calories for lunch. I know I've got about this many calories till I go to bed. I'm going to eat.
Right.
Well, if I do that, guess what? I don't gain weight.
Right. But if you exceed that, it's
I'm
not
gonna
a
gain
devil.
weight.
It's a
Cause and
consequence
effect.
of gaining weight. Yeah.
The curse is broken when I identify cause and effect.
Now take it to the next generation. Your children.
Yep.
Now, at their age where they're in their formidable
listen.
years,
Listen.
now who are they watching?
Listen. Now let's go back to that. My daughters, okay, we have a curse in America of obesity.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not dissing people who are overweight.
Sure.
I'm saying we have a health crisis.
Yeah, there's an
of
epidemic
obesity.
in America today.
I'm not talking about a bulge in your pants. I'm talking about a health crisis. Obese people don't live into their 60s and 70s.
No.
They die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the facts.
Yeah.
It's happening everywhere. People are dropping dead in their 30s or 40s or 50s.
Right.
And so we've got all these problems. But again, if I can't identify that cause and effect, my daughters, when they went through puberty, 2 out of the 3 had a propensity to gain weight. Now, my first daughter, Nicole, she just had one of these rocket metabolisms that very easy for her to control her weight.
Right.
She can eat moderately and never have a weight problem.
Yeah.
My other 2 girls, they weren't like that. They had a tendency to start putting on weight. Well, when they started going through puberty, I recognized I started getting on them. And I said, and my wife would get so mad at me because they'd come in and say, "Hey, Jamie, you're getting a little bubble butt there, ain't you?" My wife said, David Chisholm, you stop it.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm not stopping it, because if she becomes obese, she's going to have a hard time finding a husband.
Yep.
No, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop trying to help her regulate her diet so that she can live a blessed life.
Yeah.
I'm
You
not
were
going to stop
breaking the
that.
curse.
I was breaking the curse
Yep.
of gluttony on the sad standard American diet. Well, you
Yep.
know what's beautiful? To this day, my kids all have strict, I'm going to call it pretty healthy diets. And guess what? They're doing that to their kids.
Same thing. Yeah.
Guess what we broke?
Yep. You broke the curse
of heart disease,
Right.
diabetes, and high blood pressure in our family.
Yep.
We're breaking the curse because we changed our diet.
Right.
If
Wow.
we break any curse, it's going to come from changing our diet. Spiritual diet breaks spiritual curses.
Yep.
Physical diet breaks health curses.
Emotional or
Time
mental.
management diet
Yep.
breaks poverty curses.
Yep.
Emotional thought patterns. I remember sitting with my kids, you know, and I know we're running out of time. I'll finish this quickly, but one of the things I ran into with my children was when I would discipline them, they had a tendency, they'd want to run in the room, slam the door, and pout. I refused to let them do it. Why? Because I remember thinking, why would I send a child into a room alone
Yeah.
who's mad at me to sulk? And what do you think's going to come visit her in that bedroom?
It's an attraction for those demonic
You better
spirits
believe
to
it.
speak to them.
And
Just
so
like that.
when I discipline my kids, I'd say, no, you come right over here. You sit right with me on the couch.
Yeah.
I'd put my arm around them, cuddle and hug on them, and reaffirm them. You know, you aren't something wrong. You did something wrong.
Right.
And, you know, and I did that all through life. And again, great family relationship. Guess what they're doing with their kids?
Same thing.
Same thing.
And it helps them overcome.
Yes.
They don't get stuck in that unhealthy pattern
absolutely.
and repeat a curse or start a new one. And that's another whole series. But you can start a new one by starting a new ungodly, unhealthy behavior.
Amen. It works.
It goes.
And again, like I say, breaking these curses is something that it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to change behavior.
It does.
I think we'll hit on this one more time.
Yeah, we've got more we can share.
There's just more to go here because we really need to tackle the curse of mental illness.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that generational curse we can help people by understanding how to take hold of your mind and how to stop the loop in your mind before it gets started. And I think we can help that. So we'll probably dig onto that a little bit
that.
next time.
That sounds
But again,
good.
we thank you for tuning in today. Man, I'm telling you, you can break every curse. Why? The curse causeless does not come to your life. Period. That's what the Bible says. And so if there's a curse, there's a cause.
Amen.
Find the cause and the curse has got to go. That's it.
That's right.
It's simple. Will there be some prayer against the demons? Well, the ones
Absolutely.
you've entertained because of the curse, there'll be habits to break, patterns to break.
Yep.
You know, it wasn't easy for me to put down Reese cups and potato chips.
No, but it wasn't a prayer that made you do it.
Yeah,
You had to make a choice.
I mean, to this day, I sit down and eat a pound of bacon and smile all the way through it. You know,
Just tastes better and better.
amen.
Yeah.
But I've learned if you want to live and have a good life, feel good, have an inheritance for your children instead of the local hospital,
Yep.
you're going to have to make some changes.
Yep. Put down the bacon.
All right.
Amen.
God bless you. We love you. Hope you enjoyed this and share this with other people because I'm telling you, this information isn't being taught everywhere because no one was teaching me. I dug a lot of this stuff out. And so I encourage you to share it with other people and help someone else break the curses in their life. Send this teaching to them and the other two that we've done previous to this because it will change people's lives. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next ROCKCAST.